This is Tully Blanchard, one of the original members of the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair and Arn and Ole Anderson. And you know what? With this world of high technology, you've got to go to the best. You've got to be the best. You've got to have the best equipment, just like the Four Horsemen always told you. InYourHeadOnline.com. That's the premier place to get your information about the wrestling business today, tomorrow, and even in the past. This is your place for the best, by the best, with the best.
All right, and welcome to In Your Head Wrestling Radio. I'm the internet icon, Jackie Jones, and I'm joined by the returning Magnum TA. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. So, you have a documentary out there, I Never Quit, the Magnum TA story, and you can get it on highspots.com, or you can even, if you join their network, highspotswrestlingnetwork.com, for $9.99 a month, you can watch it streaming on there. I watched it, and it was great, and I'll talk more about that. But how did the project come about? Like, what was like the pitch? How did they approach you about it?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
No problem. For your documentary, how did it come about? Like, how did they approach you about it?
Well, they just came to me and said, it's going to be 30 years after the fact, and we wanted to see kind of where you're at today and what life's been like, and just kind of the continuation of the story, because so many people don't know what's going on in my life or anything else, and I said, well, that's cool, and we can do that. And if y'all want to spend the time and invest to do that, and they did, and so that's how it ended up happening.
Yeah. Was there anything in particular that you yourself wanted to say in this documentary, or kind of a message?
It wasn't so much a message as it was kind of like a health check for the world to say, hey, I've not just maintained, but I've had a good life, and the cards that I was dealt and things that I went through, some people would have considered just really overwhelming, and life would have just taken on a very sour note and kind of a lackluster, and poor pitiful me, what should have been, and all that kind of good stuff. And I didn't want to have that kind of message, so I was I was wanting to put something positive out there, as a word of encouragement, and just kind of a giving back of thanks to fans that have supported me so much over the years.
When you watch it, it's really powerful, and a lot of that has to do with, at the beginning, it's almost when you see you having a little hard time getting around, and at first it's like, it's almost like showing your frailty, and you feel kind of bad. But as you watch it, and first you see all your story and everything, but then you see you today and everything that you've done in the last few decades, and it's really powerful and uplifting. And it was great to watch. But was that hard at all to allow that to be on the DVD, showing some of being hard to get around and some of your problems?
Well, I mean, that's my everyday life. So 30 years ago, looking at that and portraying that to the world, that'd have been hard. But 30 years of dealing with it, and that being the reality of what I am faced with, is really more of a look, it's not easy, but life's not easy, and you've got to take the best you can do with the hand that you've been dealt, no matter what it is in life. Mm-hmm. And everybody can relate to hard times and tough adversities and challenges and things that don't have maybe the classical storybook ending, so to speak. And that is the realism and the reality of it that I wanted them to see, because we can live in the magic and the glitz and the glamour of the things we portrayed in the ring and things we did that were, so memorable and so much fun to do and so entertaining. But if you don't apply the same work ethic that we did to try to be the best of what we did in your everyday life and with your everyday challenges, then, it's kind of all a bunch of foo-foo stuff. And I didn't want them to think that the things that I said early on after my accident and the perseverance and the things that I spoke to and of, and my commitment to, being the best that I could be, had ever been anything less than that. And you really can't tell that till you've been through the test of time. Mm-hmm. And the rubber's met the asphalt, and, were you able to walk the walk, or did you just talk the talk?
Mm-hmm. Was it interesting for you to watch people, like your contemporaries, talk about you on the DVD when you saw the finished product?
Yeah, it was very moving to see Nikita and Jimmy Valiant and Ricky Morton and different guys. Yeah, it was big, and it was really it was a little overwhelming in some ways, because I had no idea what it was going to look like. I mean, we went through like 5 hours of interviews one-on-one, and then did some other stuff too. So, I didn't know who all he talked to, where he got footage from, or anything.
Mm-hmm. No.
So yeah, I was very pleased with the product. I just watched it last Friday night for the first time myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you showed your family? Are your kids old enough to watch it?
Oh yeah. They watched it.
Now, what was that like?
They all enjoyed it.
Yeah. So some of the stuff in your wrestling career, on the DVD is even before you're in wrestling, you talk about street smart education, working security, and do you think that helped your wrestling character, personality wise? And it was kind of like a changing time in wrestling when the fans started to like an edgier guy, not like the goody, and that kind of all helped for you in connect with the audience.
Well, yeah, it did, because it gave me a more well-roundedness to add to all the other experiences I'd already had in amateur sports and other things I'd done growing up, and things that made me really diversified. But when you combine being educated and then having that worldly understanding of the seedier side of things, and the street side, and what it takes in that world, and you put it all together, it's a real good recipe for a wrestling character, to say the least. And it was something that I was able to draw from, because everything that I did, I was very comfortable in my own skin doing. It wasn't like I was having to be some stretch or trying to be some flamboyant, over the top, personality that I wasn't comfortable being in real life. And we lived the gimmick 24/7 back then. I mean, if folks really understood, how much of your time was really invested in, these characters that we, portrayed on television. I mean, who would ever have been as dedicated to do something like Nikita did, and not speak any English to anybody in the outside the little inner sanctum of the wrestling guys for over a year. He worked out in a Gold's Gym and never said a word to anybody, just walked around like this monster, and that was the time that we came from, when it was such a prestigious thing to be brought into the inner circle. And when you got there, you treated it like you were a member of the blooming Secret Service or something. I mean, you really took care of the business, and were glad to be part of it, and treated it with a respect that was just really unheard of today, because it can't ever be like that again, because kayfabe will never be back. I mean, nobody's ever going to, rewind and pull this all back in and try to portray it to be anything besides, just great entertainment, which is, what it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it was a different time. I mean, there was people that would, throw down in the middle of the street and fight over it in a second to defend it. And that's the way it was.
You say that about wrestling, people might not believe that it's legit anymore, the kayfabe and everything, but I still think people could get emotionally attached to it. I mean, like shows like The Walking Dead, like there's stories now of like fans like booing and wanting to spit on the guy who plays the villain in the movie and the show because he killed somebody, and they don't think zombies are real, but they still get emotionally attached to the characters. Do you think that's still possible in wrestling today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you get that with it doesn't matter what it is, if it's a sitcom or if it's a sports personality that's got this got a way of communicating with the fans and drawing them in and having that, that kind of interaction. I mean, it's still capable. I mean, people still want to have their fantasy world and their heroes and villains and their escape from reality. And that's, the story as old as time. That's why, people still go to the movies and people spend all this money, watching all these things that other people develop and do to entertain them. So yeah, you can absolutely still draw them in. And I promise you that if there was somebody like Tully and myself, that were given the liberty to work an angle the way we are capable of working an angle, even in today's processed, entertainment thing that they have, we could make them come out scratching their heads, wondering whether we'd flip the switch and gone goofy and decide we're throwing the script out the window and we're really ticked off at each other. And we're going to, kick each other's ass. I mean, we could do that.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, absolutely, it can be done, and there's guys out there that have the talent to do it. If it didn't scare the mess out of the folks that are worried about monitoring the the PG rating and all the other marketable things that go along with the business today, you could somebody could do that. Yeah, hands down, it could still be done.
Yeah. You talked about PG, and it seemed like wrestling really always was rated PG, except for like the Attitude Era. But I think there's a difference between like PG and like G-rated, where it's more aimed towards kids, as opposed where it might be an adult show, but it's okay for kids. So do you think there's a level there of not going over line, but yet still being like something like an adult can enjoy?
I don't know. I mean, I look at what we did, and of course, we were looking at appealing to the 18 to 35-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Basically, it was like the core market they were looking to try to draw from. And I mean, I wouldn't want my kids to watch the level of intensity and violence that we portrayed, on television and in arenas and everything else. Just because I'd spend all my time explaining to them that this was just, entertainment. I'd be over explaining it all the time because I wouldn't want them to think this is the way real people really solve their problems. And so as far as it being kid friendly, I don't think we were really kid friendly. I think it was just a different time, and people had a little bit different attitude. I think back about the things that were in what was called PG movies back in the 70s and early 80s, and that stuff would really be frowned upon today as being okay. So the world's kind of shifted. It's real dark to me on some levels, but the things that are politically correct today are definitely way different than they were 30 years ago.
Yeah. Actually, after I said that, and you mentioned this isn't way you want to solve your problems, I immediately thought of the chair shard in the I Quit match, and I guess you're probably right. And I've mentioned this. I've been doing the show for 10 years, and I've always mentioned that's my favorite match. And what is it about the I Quit match with you and Tully that does stand the test of time, and people still talk about it, and I think if people see it on the network, it still stands out to them.
I think you could feel the intensity and the electricity, even if you never seen all the angles and everything that led up to it. That's the thing that kind of amazes me, because to me, when I did it, the match was almost anticlimactic, because Tully and I had so many just brutal battles all over the flipping country. Where we had just fought, tooth and nail up and down the aisles and across the stages and everything else for months before it got settled in the I Quit match. And so when I actually did it, it was, it was captured on film. So, that, kind of, captured it for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But I could feel the electricity that night. I knew it was something special. But to me, I felt that so many times when he and I had, been in every place from a, 3,000 seat sold out gymnasium to a, 20,000 seat sold out big arena.
Mm-hmm.
So it amazes me to this day.
Yeah. When you guys talked about it on the DVD and you mentioned that the idea for that match, you build up to, and it's like closure for the feud, but at the same time, Tully's still left, because he has a out saying, "I never said I quit." And was that to keep Tully strong, or also to possibly go back to the feud maybe down the line if you became NWA champion?
It was just good. It was good business. It was a thing to do. I mean, he was such a hot heel, and I could only imagine that I had the good fortune to have won the world title or something.
Mm-hmm.
What he and I could have done, around that.
Yeah, exactly. You talk a lot about when you're going into to train to wrestle, and it's the Andersons and Buzz Sawyer and the guys. Now later when you went back when you went to the NWA and Ole was there, did he remember that?
Oh, very much so. Yes, he did.
And did that affect how did he like respect you for that, or like what were his thoughts on that?
No, nothing negative was ever said about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was always just kind of comical because, back then they were doing everything they could to just protect the business, excuse me, and keep, people from, going out and, just thinking anybody could be a wrestler.
Mm-hmm. You still there?
Just a minute. I think my headset just disconnected.
Oh, sorry. No problem. We're having technical problems here, but we'll be
Okay.
All right. Good.
We're back.
Very good. Yeah. So yeah, we were just talking about Ole Anderson and when you went back to the NWA, or you went to the NWA.
Yeah, and really, the only one that was ever there that even remembered it was Gene. Gene was the one that was there, and he just thought it was kind of funny, but I had a great working relationship with all those guys, and it was just a lot of mutual respect with everybody, and I mean, we all just busted our rear ends every day to try to get the fans the best show that we could.
Mm-hmm. You also, it's interesting that you basically never had like wrestling school. You just learned to wrestle in the ring. And
I had wrestling school 7 days a week in a different town every night, and working for Dino. That was my wrestling school.
Yes, do you think you were just a natural at it, or is it the people you worked with were so good, or kind of a combination of the two?
Well, I think I was obviously had some natural aptitude. I mean, I'd been an athlete my entire life and wrestled amateur in high school and college, and had a natural niche for talking. I never once got had stage fright or worried when somebody put a camera in front of my face to talk. So I was just very comfortable in the environment. I'd always heard about guys, they'd be so nervous they're blowing up and they had to roll in the ring, they're throwing up and all that stuff. And I never had that happen to me one time ever. Mm-hmm. So I must have had some God-given natural talent to for that kind of thing, for that to have come to me the way it did in such a relatively short period of time.
And then it's also interesting because when you get to the Nikita feud, you talk about how that was like, you went from being the guy that, had to not necessarily be carried, but you'd be wrestling the more veterans, and then eventually you got to the point where you were the guy that would be taking a greener guy and, structuring the match and, making it work. And that was a really interesting take on everything.
Well, yeah, because the veteran always led the match.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd worked with everybody, from, Flair, Ted DiBiase,
Ernie Ladd, Mr. Wrestling 2, the Royal Kangaroos when I was down in Florida, Dory Funk Jr., great after great after great after great. And I was always just kept my mouth shut and listened to them, let them lead, let them do their thing. I knew how to take care of myself and what I need to do to get over as I became a veteran. But that was the first program where I was the veteran, and it was a lot I put on myself because there was no bones about it. My ambition was to be the world's heavyweight champion, and to be the champion, you got to be able to do that. You got to be able to go out there with guys that are stars in their respective areas, but they may not be the same level of performer as the Ric Flairs or the Tully Blanchers. And I was really proud of that program. We did a lot of 30 and 45-minute matches that were outstanding. And Nikita worked his ass off, and Ivan was in his ear every night and talking to him. And, he was a great student of the game. But, again, I know that had I not been prepped and prepared the way I had been for 4.5 years prior to that, it wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm. How stiff was the clothesline, Nikita's sickle?
Honestly, I worked so solid,
mm-hmm.
and you can ask anybody that worked with me. Arn and Tully and Rick, and they'll all tell you. I came from the Bill Watt school of, being the biggest badass you could be in there in the ring. And I don't want anybody to ever question anything I did. It all had to look solid. So I worked so snug that Nikita was just big and strong and fast and could be clumsy. His clotheslines were snug and all that. The thing with Nikita was he could fall down, be taking a bump, and his foot could fly up so fast that he would be taking a bump and kick you with that steel-toed boot of his so hard, not trying to hurt you, but just taking a bump that he could kill you. So it wasn't the things that he did purposely. It was the things that he did just out of his sheer explosiveness that made him somebody you had to keep your eye on a little bit.
Yeah. I want to bring up, because now you mentioned that. Now, I'm still a big wrestling fan. I've always watched it, and there's nothing against, not to take away from wrestling today, but that era really, to me, holds up and stands out, because when you watch matches, it does seem like everyone is in an actual fight, as opposed to a lot of the wrestling today. Even if it's like fun to watch, it seems like they're performing together as opposed to actually trying to hurt each other.
And and it's like I got a lot of respect for the guys that can do that, routine type performance. Because frankly, I'd have really been a fish out of water. Because you might tell me we might, we get the opportunity, we might try this little spot somewhere in the match. But for somebody to tell me that I've got to, sit down and choreograph what I'm going to do for 20, 30 minutes out there in the ring and tell you every step of it, I would have told somebody to take a flying leap.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're supposed to be an artiste. You're not supposed to be, somebody who just follows a routine. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people that do that and do it so well that they mesmerize you. My stepdaughter Tessa's boyfriend is King Ricochet, and I've watched him do things that just completely baffle my mind. Mm-hmm. That they do, and it's awesome and it's exciting, but you couldn't sit and watch 6 matches all doing that exact same thing, even if they were all doing it well, and get the same feeling you do by seeing somebody that's portraying a struggle and a contest and something that isn't quite so pretty. And it looks like, you're just wanting to reach out there and help them because they're trying so hard to get out of a move or overcome fight their way from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, to me that's kind of missing. Now, there's guys out there that can do it. There's plenty of guys out there that can do it. It's just they don't get as much opportunity as we had the good fortune of having, I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you still watch wrestling on TV?
Oh, yeah. I do, because, I've got, Cody's not on the WWE anymore, but I keep up with what's going on just because, I still love it. My kids like it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some guys out there that I really like to watch. I like to watch Seth Rollins. I think he's a superstar,
mm-hmm.
and a class act on top of that. And I got a lot of respect for John Cena and the way he carried the banner for the WWE for the past 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some good guys out there, some good talent, and they put on some entertaining shows. And what they've done with the women's division is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. I was going to mention that. Like, did you? I assume you've known Charlotte since she was a little girl, and
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, for me as a wrestling fan, I was never really a big fan of women's wrestling until the last couple of years or so, and she's definitely a big part of it. So, but what are your thoughts on her? And also, Bailey doing the belly to Bailey, or the Bailey to belly.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really cool, man.
Uh-huh.
That she did that, and because how people laugh and talk to some fans of different venues and stuff, and everybody brings up Brock Lesnar, and I say he's as big. I said nobody can deny he's a beast. I said, but obviously he doesn't do a suplex very good, because I can't imagine I had to give somebody 15 suplexes and I didn't win the match.
That's very true. Uh-huh.
I never gave him but one.
Uh-huh.
So there must have been something in the delivery.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, someone with Jake the Snake giving 20 DDTs in one match, it would kind of take away the...
a finish used to be a finish, and it meant something. And they've just done so much to get them to pop, to get them to cringe, to get them to this, get them to get a reaction, that you can overdo anything. Even something that's really good, you can overdo it to the point that, okay, it was great the first 20 times you saw it, and then you yawn and want to know what's next.
Mm-hmm. Well, would MMA have been anything you would have been interested in if it would have been around when you were getting into wrestling?
I was a big enough businessman that I wouldn't have seen the money in that, because I knew the money we could make in our business. And Steve Austin, $20 million in 1 year, that's a good paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys go out there, and I don't care if they make $2 or $3 million. If your shelf life's 4 or 5 years and you're busted up the rest of your life, what good is all that?
Yeah.
So I'm a fan. I like to watch it. But would I've ever looked at that for a profession? No, I just didn't see any longevity in it.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask one more question here about Andre, because I didn't realize you were friends with Andre, or that he came up with the name. And do you have any drinking stories with Andre?
Well, not any stories. That was just the way of life that we all had back then anyway. But,
that's true. Yeah.
Andre, it was funny. I'd see Andre like every. I'd go 3 months without seeing him, or 8 or 9 months without seeing him. And because it depended on where you were at and where he was touring and all that kind of stuff. But Andre would drink, like he'd go on sprees where all he would drink was beer. And then he'd go on sprees where all he was going to drink is Crown Royal. Or then he'd go on sprees where all he was going to drink is wine. And it didn't matter which one he was doing. Nobody could drink with Andre. Somebody may kid themselves and say, "Oh, so and so drank so many beer." If Andre wanted to drink you under the table, you were toast. Because we were all pretty super heavyweight drinkers in our own world, but he was in a whole nother one. Anybody can sit and drink 100 beers at a setting, I could drink 30 and the lights were out and the party was over. Yeah. And but he was just a gentle giant. I never saw him angry. I don't think I've ever seen him raise his voice at anybody. And he was certainly a huge influence and had a huge impact on my career. And I always have a special place in my heart for him. I tell my kids stories about him, and of course they've seen him on The Princess Bride, and they just everything in the world they see they compare to Andre. They see somebody big. They say, "Is he as big as Andre?" Or they see something real big and heavy. Can Andre pick that up? I mean, he's legendary, and it continues on well past his passing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want everyone to know I Never Quit, the Magnum TA stories on DVD from highspots.com. And this summer, I spent several months in the hospital and rehab. And even though it's not to level anything you went through, I found this very uplifting, and it's also motivational. And I think even if you don't have a personal connection to that, anyone would really find this interesting. If you're a wrestling fan, even if you're not really a wrestling fan, I think you'd find the human story very interesting, and I really recommend the DVD.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So again, that's highspots.com or highspotswrestlingnetwork.com. And if people want to follow Magnum TA online, is there best place to do so?
I'm just still a newbie in the world of social media. I've got a Facebook page and a Twitter and a tweet thing that I really still don't understand tweets and how they work or why you do them. and I am on Instagram, and I just follow things and stuff that I like. I'm still into hot rod cars and motorcycles, and our newest passion is off-roading and four-wheeling on ATVs and UTVs. My whole family enjoys that. We pretty much are out there doing that every weekend that we get a chance. I don't know what it is that's soothing about going out in the middle of somewhere and riding around in a mud hole, but it sure is a great stress reliever and helps you recharge your batteries and get ready to go through another week of life. So that's got to become our new family passion thing. But yeah, I'll bounce around out there. You'll see me on Facebook, and I do posts on Instagram, but I'm not good enough to maintain a Twitter account, though I do have one. I probably haven't tweeted 5 tweets in 5 years.
All right, thanks. So yeah, you probably just stay away from there. Anyway, thank you for coming on. It's been awesome to talk to you.
Hey man, it's been my pleasure. I'm glad we were able to put it together, and just like to say thank you to all the wrestling fans for still remembering and keeping the I Quit alive.
God bless you. Thank you so much, guys. Hey, again, man, in your head, man. Hey, luscious 1-inch bicep, man, and handsome Jack, man. Woo, mercy. Boogie woogie, man, feel good. I'll tell my people, all my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss in your head every week, baby. God bless you all. Hey, get them DVDs, man. Woo, mercy, the Jimmy Valiant Experience, the Memphis Heat, and Ultimate Deathmatch. And check out jimmyvaliant.weebly.com. Woo, mercy. Love you guys. Hey, see you soon, man. God bless. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thanks, man. That was great.